Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Aptem webinar on making best use of onboarding. We can see people are still coming in, so we're just going to give another couple of minutes for everybody to get into the webinar, and then we'll get started. Okay, good morning again, everybody. I can still see some people are coming in, but we'll get started anyway. Welcome again to this Aptem Masterclass on making the best use of onboarding. Just a few ground rules before we get started. So you are all in listen only mode. So if you do need any assistance during the webinar, please use the chat function. There will be opportunity to ask questions throughout the session, so please use the question panel. We will attempt to answer these throughout the session. However, there will also be an opportunity at the end to answer any questions that people need answering. If we don't get the opportunity to answer all the questions at the end, we will follow up at the following this webinar. And just so you're aware, this webinar is being recorded as well, and we will make sure the recording is made available on the Help Centre in due course. So first off, I'm going to introduce you to today's host. So my name's James. I'm Solutions Consultant here at Aptem. Been working in vocational training for over 7 years with roles at training providers in the UK, and have got experience in quality assurance, delivery, curriculum and standards. My co-host today is Claire. She's part of the implementation team and has extensive experience working in apprenticeships and training in previous roles in both colleges and ITPs. Claire now works with a range of our apprenticeship training providers and guides them through their implementation of Aptem. Over to you, Claire.
Thank you. Just want to do a quick technical test, just to confirm that you can see me, you can hear me okay, and everything is coming across loud and clear. James, if you could just give me a nod, that would be great.
You are perfect, Claire. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So welcome to today's session. It's great to have so many people joining us this morning. Great to have some familiar faces as well. I've been just checking out who's joining the session today, so welcome everybody. And as James already mentioned, if you do have any questions for us after the session, please feel free to pop them in and we'll be more than happy to answer any kind of bespoke questions that you may have. So session today is all about Aptem and the onboarding experience. And I've designed this session with a couple of different kind of clients in mind. So if you're new to Aptem and thinking about what Aptem can do to improve that overall application journey with regards to compliance, eligibility checks, and just that visual feel, you might not have seen Aptem's onboarding experience before, this is absolutely the session for you. In addition to that, if you are an experienced Aptem customer, but are also thinking about how can I elevate the experience of both my learners, my employers, as well as your as well as your admin team, this is absolutely as well the webinar for you, because we'll be looking at all of those things. So In terms of the session, we're going to start our journey looking at some pre-design considerations. When you start to engage with Aptem, you'll realise very, very quickly this is certainly one of our recommendations that we'd say it's important to understand what you're about to design in terms of the software before you get into any configuration in your Aptem tenancy. We'll also be looking at some of the onboarding journey options, and these are simply options. As a consultant, I work with many different clients right across the country, and I tend to see various different trends occurring with regards to the onboarding experience. So I'd like to share with you some of that today, some of the trends that I'm seeing across the country. I'd also like to showcase with you some best practice in capturing eligibility. And if anybody was on one of my recent webinars with regards to preparing for a SAR, this element in particular follows on from that concept of ensuring that we've got reviews that support every element of our onboarding journey, therefore capturing the entire learner journey, but also providing a very strong audit trail for any of our funders. James will then take us through some new functionality related to the ILR declaration and documentation. So let us consider what our pre-design considerations mean. What do I mean when I ask you to do that, or when that advice comes across? So what I'm actually referring to is something that we tend to be very good at as providers, to consider the entire learner journey as part of that experience. So when we think about that, we must think about what questions do we want to ask our learners? What do we need to ask to make sure they're compliant? But also, what do we want to ask to elevate their experience as well? Are there any supporting processes that need to align as part of that journey that we may not have considered originally? Does the learner require any support to complete that journey? Are there any actions that the learner needs to complete in advance of that journey or as part of that experience? Prime example for apprenticeship providers being gathering all of their evidence in terms of previous qualification certificates such as English and Maths. What is the capability of the learner or our audience when we think about those pre-designed considerations? Does it need to be visually appealing? Does it need to have a different type of font, for example? And also considering what kind of technology that person has access to, because it all has an impact on what we're about to design. So firmly considering the audience that we're looking for. I have come across providers that have considered all of these questions and many, many more, and then have come up with various different onboarding options depending on the different answers to those questions. Another group of people we need to consider is our employers. What are their requirements as part of this application process? Do they require a telephone interview? What is the reporting requirements that they would like to see come through as part of this journey? Do they have any questions for us, for the learner, as part of the overall onboarding experience? And again, are there any processes we need to include the employer in as part of that journey? So again, another great example being the signing of documents as part of the journey. Do we need to offer any support for our employers as part of the journey? Does the employer have any actions? And once again, what technology does that employer have access to? And all of the answers to those questions will dictate the journey that we're about to build. As apprenticeship providers, when we design an application process for an apprentice, we tend to be great at this. So we firmly think about our learner journey, and we do consider an employer journey. But what Aptem can do is actually improve this journey and make this journey really process driven, and also result in a highly compliant process where we're considering right learner, right program, right time, right level. So questions that we must consider are around the admin journey. What level of compliance do we need to apply to this application journey? And how will that team ensure that we are compliant as the learner moves through that journey? Are there any training requirements for that particular team with regards to the ILR, the extended ILR, and eligibility checks? We can use Aptem to drive process all the way through the system. So as we move our learner through the journey, we move our employer through the journey, we can also support that through processes using some of our functionality. So are there any outlying processes that we can map as part of this journey? What's the time frame for the entire admin journey, taking the learner from day one all the way through to first day of learning? What is that time frame? And it all dictates, once again, the journey that we're about to take our learner on and the design of our application journey. Are there any resource implications for that team? And are there any ILR implications or considerations that we need to think about? So before I go any further, let us think about for a moment, if you're a new person to Aptem, what is the onboarding journey? What are we actually referring to? So if you're an apprenticeship provider, we can think about this as the application journey that will take our learner through as part of them first stages of welcoming them into your organisation. And you can see on screen a basic image taken from an Aptem tenancy, and we are going to go live, so don't worry, you're going to see this all in the flesh. But this is just a screenshot taken from that tenancy of an example of an onboarding journey. So you can see that visually, very simple, very easy for the learner to engage with, and it is basically every stage of an application that a learner will go through, right the way through to thank you and next steps. The onboarding journey goes through numbered stages. Each one can be configured to your own needs as a provider. So we can see here that we've got quite a short journey here, I have to say, which tends to be what we see across the sector. But you can have this, you can have many more steps. You can have 1, 2, 3 steps. Whatever you decide to design as a provider will simply be numbered here, and learner will simply click next and progress through that journey in a nice logical format. All of that is configured using what we refer to as the onboarding wizard within the Aptem tenancy. And it is up to you as a provider to design that particular journey. And we've already explored some of the questions that you'll need to consider before you get there. The onboarding wizard includes various different options within it. So we do have a range of preset options which don't require any configuration from you. All you need to do is decide what you'd like to use and turn it on. And that allows the learner then to engage with that particular element. One example being the skills radar, which can be used to complete an initial assessment and then inform your recognition of prior learning calculations. We also have a range of assessments that the learner can engage with, such as BKSB and Skills Forward are 2 options that we can use with regards to functional skills. And we've mentioned there that connection to functional skills assessments. One of the most exciting things I think about Aptem's onboarding journey is actually it is 100% configurable. We do have preset options here, as I've mentioned, and I've got some more over here that I'm going to mention. They can be brought in at any point in the learner's journey, but we also have extensions of this. So we have customizable text sections in which you can design any amount of text that you would like, and I have various different examples to showcase to you. So what providers will often use these for are instructional tabs, welcome tabs. They might use it to improve the kind of experience for a learner. They might offer branding, put their own fonts in there. And I've also seen providers use the customized items to make an employer specific application journey as well, because often if we think about our employer, they may want their own branding on that journey as well. In addition to that, we have a customizable questionnaire option. So in addition to all the preset options, you might have questions that you need to ask as part of your business model moving forward. You might have, or you might just want to ask a question in a certain way that reflects your ethos, your branding. Absolutely, the configurable options, this customizable questionnaire will give you the opportunity to do so. And if I may give you an example of that one, providers consistently across the market do want to ask very early on in the journey learners about functional skills, about English and maths and what that experience looks like for them. every provider wants to word that in a slightly different way. So your customizable questionnaire gives you that option to do so in a way that feels right for you as a provider, and you can bring it in at whichever stage you would like. Therefore, these two options provide that 100% configuration or configurable feel to your application journey. In addition to that, the onboarding wizard also has compliance features. So we have a preset ILR and a preset extended ILR. And I have mentioned preset and preset here. This one is actually configurable, and I do have an example of that as we move forward. And we've also got another compliance feature, which is the prior learning record, which allows you as a provider to link into the learning record service to complete your eligibility check. So what are your options? What do we tend to see across the market? And before I introduce this, I'd like to point out that the onboarding journey in Aptem gives you capabilities to make these right decisions. So often as providers, we reference this kind of phrase: the journey will result in the right learner, right program, right level, right time, leading hopefully to reductions in breaking learning and early leavers, because we've made the right decision about our learners, whilst also giving opportunity to offer information, advice and guidance to those learners that may need to have a positive no, which is not a bad thing. So stage one stage onboarding journey is an example of an application journey that we can see across the market. So when I said before that the journey is highly configurable, it is. So when we see this, we see every provider wants to do something ever so slightly different. So a one-stage onboarding journey would be everything in one step. So we might see, anything up to 10, 11 steps in that journey, even more in some cases. And it would simply include eligibility questions and assessments as an example, as a very, very basic example. Another option would be a two-stage onboarding journey. In this example, what I tend to see is section one, the provider will want to address basic eligibility questions. So basic questions might include, basic sections might include simply the ILR, the extended ILR, and maybe a question about functional skills or off-the-job requirements. Basically, the provider is simply looking for, are you eligible to receive funding? And all of that can be designed within Aptem. Followed by a section two with additional assessments. So what are, if we look at these two, the advantages and disadvantages of both? The advantage of this one is that it's a one-stage journey, so learner will only have to engage once in an application journey. Disadvantages, it can be quite long. So in terms of just the time frame and the commitment from the learner, that can be quite a long experience. Advantages of this one: shorter, much more manageable for the learner, because they are simply engaging in eligibility and then assessments. You can also take time with the learner to prepare them for assessments as well, or to prepare them for various different things they may need to find as part of that application journey. So once again, just thinking about that gathering of certificates and evidence that they might need to engage with. If we go for this option, they don't necessarily have that, and there is room for error there, I suppose, with the learner. Disadvantages of this one can take just a little bit longer, because at each stage the admin team will want to be checking that if a learner is engaged with eligibility, the admin team will then check if that learner is eligible to receive funding, and only then will they progress that learner to the next stage. So that can just take a little bit more time compared to this one. But hopefully we get to this point and then we have filtered out a number of learners at stage one and only allowing the right learners through to section two. Another option, which is a little bit of a rarity, I have to say, but I have seen it and it works really, really well, is pre-application checks. So you'll have section one, section two in exactly the same way as we've just seen, but also this pre-eligibility check. And if I may give you an example, I often see this used with standards that include driving. So in that example, we've almost got a pre-check, just checking that you've got a driver's license, and that's a non-negotiable. So if we haven't got that, then there's almost no point in progressing that learner through to the next stages. And certainly that works really, really well. Another item that I've seen in this methodology is telephone interviews or pre-application interviews where an employer might want to get involved in that stage of the journey. And again, because of the configurable options within Aptem, all of this is available to you. I'd like to point out here as well that this is just 3 examples. I see many other examples across the sector, and it's not to say that anyone is better than the other. It's just to give you some kind of steering and examples of what we see. And you know, there are, like I said, many more examples that I could share with you as well. One of the things that will elevate this experience, so once we've designed what we'd like the onboarding journey to look like, is the support of eligibility reviews in Aptem, supported by strong admin processes and facilitating line manager approvals. And once again, all of that, when we take all of this into consideration, leading to then positive results, that reduction in breaking learning and early leavers, because we're making great decisions about our learners progressing into the next stage. I've mentioned there the term reviews, and I've said that each one of them stages is supported or can be supported by the review functionality. So if you're new to Aptem, that might sound counterintuitive, because as an apprenticeship provider, you will think of the word review, and you will automatically think that that means a tripartite, or you might think about an ALS review. Actually, the term reviews in Aptem simply refers to forms. So it gives you the opportunity to build an extensive amount of forms within Aptem that can support every stage of the learner's journey. And this gives you a real configurable function. The reviews actually produce a PDF version as well. So for some of my kind of larger clients, universities, this is a really important feature, because for some providers, you may be in a position where you're interacting with various different departments across your organisation. So the PDF version of that maybe eligibility review gives you the opportunity to send that then to various different places in your organisation. And of course, that PDF version has the signed option as well. So once again, you've got that, you know, highly compliant feel across the review functionality. So reviews in Aptem, thinking about that word forms, any form, and thinking about the onboarding journey, we can use the forms to be learner facing. So if you wanted to engage in that a learner interview, telephone interview, for example, or something like that, we can make it learner facing and record all of that. We can also make it employer facing, and we can also use reviews for completely internal purposes only. So thinking about eligibility reviews and checks and progressing learners through the system, or we can use a combination of all options. So reviews can include all parties if that was an option for us. So thinking about a tripartite as well. If we start to embed reviews as part of our experience in Aptem and as part of the journey, so thinking about learner goes through a section and then we review that and we record the results of that, this can facilitate really smooth processes for all parties. And some of the logic that you can use within Aptem can actually direct processes through the system and give really clear direction to anybody that's engaging with that review. The reviews can also include process automation features. And following on from our previous webinar where we talked about preparing for a SAR, this particular feature provides that audit trail of the learner, employer and admin actions, and it also captures the entire learner journey for any of our external parties. So let us dive in. Let's have a look at what the options are for us. So you'll notice that I've jumped into a couple of different screens here. So I'd like to explain what I'm doing here. So on the left-hand side, this is me logged in a test environment. So please be aware, everything you're about to see is purely for demonstration purposes only. Nothing you're about to see is of a sensitive nature. So this is me logged in as a learner. And on the right-hand side here, I am now logged in as an administrator. On the left-hand side, I'm going to use this section to show you the learner journey that they're about to go through as part of the onboarding experience. And on the right-hand side, I'm just going to open the screen up ever so slightly just to make it a little bit easier for myself. I can also see as an administrator the learner journey that learner's gone through as part of onboarding, but I'm actually going to use this screen to open up the review that sits adjacently to this particular journey. So as an administrator, I can use this review to check eligibility for this particular learner. So we'll move into that as we move towards the end of this journey. So let's have a look at it. So for me as a learner, I'm logged in, nice and intuitive, the journey. And for you guys that are looking at this and designing, I've given you an example here of some of our more advanced editing feature, one of the more advanced editing features. So this has actually been designed with HTML step. Please don't worry, you don't have to be a coder because we do give you examples of all this, and you would simply use the example, take the text out and replace it with your own text and visuals. So we've made things really nice and easy for you, but you can see in a really simple way how using that can make that look quite visually appealing as well. You know, just using some nice simple graphics and some simple text in here. Just to point out as well, just in terms of best practice, it's often lovely to put a welcome step in. You can use the onboarding journey to set the standard with regards to your own marketing as well. So you can bring your own branding in here as well, which just elevates that experience so much more than using some of the basic editing features. I've then moved on to a text step. So I mentioned previously, and that one was a text step as well, by the way, so just to point out. So this is a text step as well. This one uses HTML. This one uses the very basic editing functionality. So I haven't put anything fancy in here at all, but you can see that actually that looks quite nice and it looks quite engaging for the learner. I could have also added branding if I wanted to. I've got a hyperlink in, I've got a nice visual there. So once again, just using the functionality to not only provide instruction but also make the journey really engaging for the learner as well, so they've got, you know, something nice to experience. As we progress through the journey, we've progressed through a couple of instructions, so we've gone from a welcome to an instruction, and we've set the scene for the learner with regards to the ILR. I mentioned previously that ILR is a fixed feature, so we can toggle this on at any point in a journey. And once again, just to remind you, this is not sensitive information, all fake information. But this is the ILR, so this is a preset feature within Aptem that can be turned on and used to gather all the information that's required for the ILR. One of the common elements of feedback, I'm just going to keep scrolling, that I hear across the market, or one of frustrations for providers, is that using other systems, a learner has been asked to provide information 2 or 3 times and it's the same piece of information. We don't have that in Aptem. Once the learner's given you that piece of information, such as what we've seen on the ILR, that information carries through all the way through the journey. So learner doesn't have that level of frustration, and you don't have that level of frustration either as a provider. So one of the great kind of process automation features. We've then got an example of this text step, and once again, nothing fancy here, nothing advanced, simply copying and pasting, to be honest, is all I've used in here, just copying and pasting some text and just brought in some visuals, that's all. However, I'd like to point out this. So this is probably for some of our more experienced providers, you'll notice that this text here has actually been changed. So further instructions actually refers to the extended ILR that I'm about to show you. But actually, because Aptem is 100% configurable, you can change that. So if a term as one of our fixed features just doesn't make sense for you, so the ILR or the extended ILR, you don't feel that communicates correctly to your learners, you can change it. And I often see that changed actually. So for example, the ILR often see referred to as about you or something very similar, and the extended ILR changed as well to something like this. It just makes it that much more user friendly for your learner. So this is now, and again for our experienced Aptem providers, this is the extended ILR, and you'll be very familiar with this. The extended ILR is preset as a toggle on and toggle off, so it can be brought in at any stage in your journey, but it can be edited. So it's a little bit different to the ILR. This cannot be edited at all because it is the ILR. But in the extended ILR, you can change little bits of this. So if you felt, I'm just going to scroll down to one. So if you felt that actually you didn't want to ask your learner this particular question, you could simply toggle that off in the background to make your journey that much more fit for purpose for you as a provider. And I'm just going to keep scrolling just to kind of showcase this to you. Other elements that training providers tend to interact with a little bit more, so they might toggle these off and replace with their own questions, tend to be these sections here. But as you can see, in its very basic format as a toggle on, this is great. So we are asking questions about, are you the right learner, going on the right program, is it the right time, career aspirations, personal circumstances, any question you can think to ask has been included here. And another great feature about the extended ILR is that you can add sections to it as well. So if you felt there was something just missing there, you can add a section at the bottom and complete that full cycle for your learner. So let's progress a little bit. And finally, so we've moved our learner through this example of a journey, which is, as you can see, very focused on eligibility. No assessments in here at all, just that very basic understanding. And then we've got an and finally section. And in here, I wanted to showcase to you an example of a custom questionnaire where you can use the logic in the system to drive processes and also reveal extra questions. So you can see here, if I'm clicking yes or no, we can use the system to drive forward different elements and different processes. And respond to those questions, obviously, as a provider as required. This is as well highly recommended that we do provide an and finally and a thank you and next steps as part of that elevation of the journey. This final step here, as you can see, basic text, no HTML, nothing at all going on in terms of editing functionality in this particular step. But I wanted to use this just to showcase to you that actually it looks great in its own format. You don't have to add anything if you don't want to. That still looks visually appealing. It still looks nice and logical. The text still looks great here. So you don't have to add all them extra, I suppose, bells and whistles. If you don't want to, you can make your experience very simple if you'd like to. A recommendation is that you use thank you and next steps as part of any application journey. And in that, you may want to include dates, answer questions. So at the very start of our presentation today, I said that a recommendation is think about every question a learner could ask you. And in here, let's answer it. So what kind of questions are they going to ask? They're going to ask about what happens next, how are they going to get in touch, what if I'm not eligible, what if it's not the right apprenticeship for me, are there any options for the learner with regards to information, advice and guidance, and how will the candidate ask any questions. So anything that you can think of, including that thank you and next steps, and of course ensure that that is supported by your own internal processes, so that you're really clear on the time frame in which you have to move this learner through eligibility. Once learners completed that journey, they would simply click finish, and then they receive a relax page where they can just kick back or relax and wait for you to provide a response based on the eligibility check. So over here, as an administrator, I'm now showcasing to you an example of how we can use reviews. This is not meant to be a fully built out eligibility checklist. It is simply that showcase of what you could do to elevate your admin experience. So learners gone through the journey here, and as an administrator, I've got to do some checks now to make sure they're eligible. So we can then use our custom questionnaires to drive forward process and think about what do we need to check. So one question could be, is the applicant over 16? Is the applicant employed? No. And as I'm answering these questions, you can see how we can use this review to drive processes. And I've mentioned that a number of times now, and I'd strongly encourage you to think about how you can use Aptem to do that. So I'm going to put no, and then once again, we've got some elements here where we would record our answers based on the answers that we're given. A number of providers that I work with now are also offering information, advice and guidance all the way through this journey as part of Positive No's, but also to redirect potentially learners into different options. So if you have a commercial option, or if you've got different funding options here, you could potentially use the answers to this to then dictate or direct your team to where that learner could go within your organisation, and you've got a record of that, of course, on that review. We've also got an example of an employer confirmation question, so no logic in that one, just a simple question, as well as an example of how you can bring in evidence from this particular journey. So I'm just going to unpack this just for a moment. I'm going to go back to this learner's journey here. This learner was asked these questions as part of their journey, and this particular section is capturing that for you. So you've got a hard copy of those answers in the review as a PDF if you wanted to. Again, it's just one of the features that we have available. And once again, another question: can the learner progress to application 2? No. let's give a positive no on this one and reveal the logic. So there we have a great example of what you can do next. If they are yes, let's record any actions, let's record the date we're doing it. And in doing all of this, we are making the right decisions, we're recording all our responses, we are preparing our SAR, and we're also preparing our ESFA evidence pack really easily by just using some of the great logic that is within the system. I do have another example to show you very quickly. I'm not going to go into as much depth in this one, but just to show you very quickly another option. So I'm just going to jump into this learner's onboarding journey. And I'm going to close that up a little bit so you're not distracted too much looking in the background. So this is onboarding 2. So if we think about a 2-stage onboarding journey for that previous learner, let's imagine that learner has progressed. So we've decided actually they are eligible to receive funding. We could then potentially progress them to this section, and I have some examples in here of some of our preset options. So once again, example of a very basic tech step, still looks okay. And then we have the personal learning record, can often be brought in at this stage, as well as the functional skills link into BKSB, as well as the skills radar. You'll notice here, the skills radar in this example only includes knowledge requirements. And that is because we have a bespoke element to our skills radars or initial assessments. Therefore, you can design them in any way you like. So if you have an RPL policy in the background and you would like the initial assessment to reflect that, you can build that in Aptem. And that's a great thing to do, actually. And actually, breaking the KSBs up in this way is often really nice as well. If you're working with a standard which may have 60 and beyond KSBs, sometimes it can just feel very overwhelming for the learner. So you can do many different things in terms of configuration to make that feel a little bit nicer for the learner, but also drive process. And once again, very basic example of thank you and next steps. So we can see here that 2-stage journey, how we can use that stage 1 to check for eligibility. Then we're using our stage 2 to kind of look at them more advanced eligibility questions as we progress through. I haven't given you an example of a 1-stage journey, but I just want just ask you to consider which way is right for you based on your position in the market and what you'd like that experience to feel like. This learner's journey is once again supported by an eligibility review. So we can see here, the eligibility review simply reflects back the stages that learner's gone through. So all the way through an eligibility review, we're simply going, right, okay, what did you answer? What's my answer as an admin based on that? And we can see here that when we bring in functional skills. If we did have a link into BKSB or Skills Forward, we would bring in the results there. We can also engage with the learner record service by connecting to that by simply clicking Get the PLR. We can also bring in, as part of this review, as you can see in this example, the evidence or the scores that were provided by the learner of their skills assessment, and therefore providing that nice hard copy, that PDF version of the review, which can be handed over to various different teams if it was required. Final confirmation in this review. Once again, an example of how we would drive process. So the question here, or the instruction here, is please record any actions regarding the prior learning record, any actions regarding functional skills. Does the learner require RPL? Can the learner progress to active learning? So, in answering all of these, we're driving forward and making sure right learner, right program, right time, and that we're following our processes really nice and clearly. I'd like to stop there because we've gone through an awful lot in terms of that showcase. So I am going to jump back in here. Just gonna rejig for a moment. There we go, that's much better. And I'm going to hand over to James, who is going to take us through our next section before we go into some questions.
Thank you very much, Claire. Hope everybody can still hear me as well. So recently within Aptem, we've done some updates to the system. Namely within the onboarding wizard with regards to the declaration, which I'm going to demonstrate for you. And then secondly, within the compliance document itself, the ILR document, there is now a customizable declaration, and you can customize and add additional logos or pictures into the documentation itself. This allows a more configurable approach to the system, and also allows for those that are not using Aptem for apprenticeship delivery to manage their own application process as well. So in first, I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see what I'm referring to. So once again, I'm in a test tenancy here, so none of the data you're going to be able to see is valid. It's all false information, fake information. We're looking at a program builder at the minute, and this is for the operational apprenticeship in operational firefighter. The first part that I'm going to show you is the simple declaration within the onboarding wizard. So if you scroll down to the onboarding wizard and go to your steps, and our step for ILR has been renamed as About You. When you go into the About You step, you'll have the ability to turn on or off the simple declaration. What this means, and I've got two learner profiles open, is that when it is not enabled, and you scroll down, in this case to more to a mouse, and you scroll down to the declaration, you will see this declaration about how the SFA uses your personal information, etc., which is a requirement for apprenticeship delivery. Alternatively, if it is turned on, and it was turned on for Tweedledum that I've got here, you'll see a very simple declaration just to say that I confirm all the information completed in this application for learning document is accurate. That allows you to use the application, the onboarding wizard, for any reasons that you'd need to use it. You may wish, in Claire's example, to use this declaration as part of the first stage onboarding, and then this declaration here as part of the apprenticeship onboarding or the delivery program onboarding wizard as well, but it's there for you. The second thing that I'm going to show you is again within the program build, and it's within the compliance documents. So when you go into compliance documents now and you've got the ILR compliance document turned on, we do have the ability now to pre-populate the compliance document. And you'll see here across the top that you can now select what logos you want to be put into the header of that document. For example, here we've got the Avon logo, the European Union Social Fund, and the Aptem logo put in. If I scroll down to the bottom as well, you'll see here that the learning declaration for this document is now editable. I'm just going to set that up to say demonstration. Once I've made the changes and everything in here, and I click save, confirm, and confirm, it's going to make the changes. What I do want to show you is that on this learner for Mortimer Mouse, we can see here that the application information document that was generated on the 17th of October has all of the regular logos in at the top, and right down at the bottom has the previous learning declaration in there as well. So if I go back to the program and just click confirm and confirm, so those changes are going to apply. That when I go into the learner again, and I've got Mortimer Mouse here, and I'm just going to refresh the screen to make sure that everything's pulled through with the application information document. When I click on edit, it's going to pull through the most recent version of that document as well. So it's now got the most recent logos at the top. And if I scroll down to the learning declaration as well, you'll see that the learning declaration has been updated. I do want to reiterate that they are two completely separate updates, are editable within the program, so you don't have to use the simple declaration in the onboarding wizard and therefore create your own declaration within the compliance document. You can choose to have one on and one off, or both on or both off, completely up to you. But as I say, more configurability within Aptem to make sure that your ILR documents, your application documents, are as accurate as you want them to be. So thank you very much. If we go back to the presentation.
Just a moment, I'm just, yeah,
thank you very much.
perfect.
We have got a number of questions that have come through as well, a number of which I have managed to answer within the chat. Hopefully they've been answered as a result of it. Just a few more that have come through as well. So Claire, just a couple of questions if we can.
Yeah.
Can you pull down onboarding custom questions from UGR reports, and quite specifically not the OData?
So the review answers are not currently available in UGR and are specific to OData. Review answers are a feature that is coming soon with regards to Aptem. I'm not sure if I fully answered that question. Have I answered that question there, James? Have I heard that correctly?
You've answered the questions about the reviews, but this is about the onboarding custom questions.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
You can report on the onboarding custom questions in the UGR. Yes, absolutely. I'm trying to load the page at the minute, but it's not working for me. But we will reach out to the person that's asked that question and just make sure they get a demonstration on that one as well.
Brilliant. Just following on from that as well, James, I don't know about you, but one of the biggest questions that I get asked is actually about your UGR and onboarding, about how we can track the onboarding experience. So if you do use the onboarding experience, UGR is absolutely the place to go to track the completion status as well of an onboarding journey, and dead easy to kind of get that data out of the system without having to go to OData. So just kind of following on from that question, really.
Yeah, that's perfect. And then another question, can bring in which group the apprentice is on into the review in the learner information. Can you show, I believe this is asking, can you show the group of which the apprentice is on within the review? The group structure within that.
If you would like to do that, I think my recommendation would actually be to use one of the custom questionnaires to record that information. And then that is recorded as a hard copy in the PDF. I think if that's where you're wanting to go, maybe that's one to follow up as well, just to understand a little bit more what that customer is trying to achieve and whether we can help them out.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you very much, Claire. And then one
Brilliant.
question just come through as well with regards to the bit that I think I've just demonstrated. So for the change in compliance documents, I was expecting the change to prompt a request for signature because there was a change in the compliance document. How is the change tracked? So the response to that is actually that the change is tracked in that only new updates get the new version of the compliance documents. There is no automation to say that the compliance document has updated, therefore everybody needs to be updated onto that. There is more control coming in with compliance documents in the future. So we will be able to demonstrate, hopefully, when that gets released, how that is going to be controlled, because we're anticipating time-bound functionality on the compliance document changes. So you'll be able to say, during a period of time, this compliance document applies, but then during a different period of time for that learner, a new version applies instead. So we'll hopefully be able to communicate that to all customers on its release in the future. So I think that's answered most of the questions that's there at the minute. I know there are a few more coming through, but what we'll do is we'll take our time to consider those questions as they're being presented, and make sure that everybody gets the answer that they need from that after this webinar's taken place. Claire, your screen's
It,
gone,
it,
I think, at the minute.
apologies for that. I've just noticed that there's a technical issue in the background. One of my screens has just disappeared. The final
Okay.
screen would lead us into some additional webinars that are coming up soon. However, I know we're recording this session and I know that we are going to send these slides out afterwards, so you will get a copy of these slides in their entirety, because there was just one more slide that we're missing and I am trying to retrieve that right now, but I'm having some system issues, so I do apologise for that.
Well, that's no problem. As Claire said, we'll share the slides afterwards, and all the upcoming webinars will be on there. Just want to take this time to say thank you to everybody for attending and listening today. I hope you got something out of it. All the questions that have been raised that haven't been answered, we will make sure that a response goes to you directly following this webinar. And as I said right at the start, a copy of this recording will be made available on the Help Centre in due course. Thank you very much, everybody. Hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and hopefully see you on future webinars. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.